A warm welcome to all of you. Many thanks to what you've done so far, of what you will do. And of course, some of them are not here anymore, they're gone, but also happy. Thanks also to all of you here. I mean, I've said that on day one, I'm going to say this again. I mean, if we didn't have any participants to MLSS here, then there was no MLSS. I guess then it would have been videos that I watch on my laptop or something like that. Maybe we can pose that as a counterfactual question. If there were no participants and everything else was the same. Enjoy the evening. Thanks.
When you want to listen to a politician that have an open mind to innovation and that's keen to take the issues and bring it closer to government, take government into a leadership position, then I think Minister Alan Winde is the right person to have tonight at this audience. So thank you, Alan, for joining us. Welcome.
Molweni wamkidikile, goeienaand, good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me here this evening. It is a great honor and privilege. And I must say that I was introduced to the kind of audience that I'm speaking to tonight, and I feel a little bit out of my depth because when I think about artificial intelligence, I think about machine learning, I think about the fourth industrial revolution. It's something that really excites me, but it's also something that I know that as an aging politician, it's something that I think about often as the bus that I've missed. It's something that makes me wish I was 20 and 30 years younger, because in the start of my career, I was an entrepreneur looking for solutions, and I didn't have the opportunities that artificial intelligence and the ecosystems of today give so many people in finding solutions for so many of us in the world. But I've probably got some other opportunities in front of me, specifically as a politician, making sure that I develop ecosystems from the political side and allow freedom, allow access, and allow that ecosystem that you are all playing in the ability to do what you need to do. I'm not going to go through a protocol list, but thank you very much for inviting me here this evening. I do note that there was a comment across the table from me that when Minister Naledi Pandor could not make it, her advisor sits here, and he said that she was out busy campaigning. And of course, I'm also a politician going into an election, and she was actually out campaigning at the moment to make sure that I don't win the election. But I'm quite relaxed at being here tonight because my phone told me this evening that where she's going tonight is not really relevant to the voter base and not going to make a difference in the outcome of the election. I hope that those scientists behind it were doing the right thing and making sure that this information I've got is correct and can be trusted. I also want to say that I'm sure many of you know that as a region, we have gone through a very difficult time with regard to a drought. And maybe to locals know that, visitors, I hope you know that too. And with that, I need to tell you two quick stories. And the first is And I heard now when Dirk introduced me, he said, excuse me, while before you get too stuck into the wine. Now, we need to save water in this region, even though it's raining tonight. So please make sure you drink wine instead of water. It does help our economy, I promise, and it tastes a lot better. But I also believe that there's a number of international visitors here tonight. So can someone just, or those of you that are international visitors tonight, just by a show of hands, show me who you are? Oh, wow, excellent. Yes. Are any of you the first-time visitors to Cape Town? Wow. Are any of you first-time visitors to the African continent? Wow. Well, can I just say to all of you, a very, very warm welcome to the southern tip of Africa. Now, I need to give you a message, and that message is, you probably didn't get it on the health warnings from your country of origin, but there is a warning. And you've got to be very, very careful of the dust here in Africa, because when you are, and you are here for quite a while, I believe, and what's going to happen is you will come in contact with dust, the African soil, and that dust is going to get on your skin. And you won't notice it while you're here. But when you get back home, you will find that you will start to get an itch. This dust gets under your skin and creates a bit of an itch. Now, there are two antidotes. The first antidote is go down to your local store and buy some good South African wine, because that will stop the itch. And the other is come back and visit us again, because that also stops the itch. And I want to give every single one of you an open invitation to please come and think about us here in the southern tip of Africa. Now, you've heard from Dirk, my job, I've been in executive office in politics now for 10 years, going on 10 years, and I ask myself the question often, are we ready in the southern tip of Africa for this next economy? Are we really ready for artificial intelligence and machine learning? And have we done enough in an ecosystem here in the southern tip of Africa to make sure that we are a relevant player in the future? Because for me it is concerning. We have high levels of unemployment, we have high levels of youth unemployment. We have big issues that many other parts of the world don't have. And is this ecosystem that's developing, is this new economy that's developing going to help us overcome some of our challenges? Or are we actually going to be regressing, and are we going to be left behind? And that, for me, is the big question. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I've been doing in the last while, maybe some of where my concerns are, and maybe even put one or two challenges to you to say, please help us be relevant in this global new economy. I believe that what we've started to do is create that ecosystem. That means we've got a serious role to play for Africa, in Africa, by Africa, but that we are also this global space that can partner with other parts of the world to make sure that we are developing things that are necessary for our planet. So my job, and what I've been busy with for the last 9 years, as you heard, I started off, I've generally for the last 9 years been responsible for an ecosystem in the economy. I was an entrepreneur before that, started 10 companies, and I love challenges and looking for solutions to our challenges. And in our region, I think we've worked very hard at building an ecosystem for this new economy. So the work that we've been doing is creating that enabling environment. So we've been investing for a long time in broadband and putting broadband into not our business centers. We don't have to connect as government the city of Cape Town to New York or Mumbai. The private sector does that very well. The World Bank tells us that we need to connect our population. And if we take the space that you find yourselves in right now, this greater city, Cape Town area, our big population groups are poor and not connected. So we've been investing billions into connecting community, connecting people, because we believe that you get GDP growth rate on the back of that connectivity, because you create that opportunity. And so we've been investing, we've been putting money into incubators, we've been putting money into connectivity, not only putting free Wi-Fi and broadband in place, we've been connecting our schools and our hospitals and our clinics so that they in turn can be collected. For example, in the rural Karoo, a doctor can look for a second opinion at the Mayo Clinic. But I think what interests me even more is that connectivity that's been growing in specifically our poorer areas. In this city, we put the first incubator into Khayelitsha. The first incubator in South Africa that went into a really poor community went into Khayelitsha. It's called the Khayelitsha Barn, which was a spin-off of an incubator that started 10 years ago called the Bandwidth Barn, which was a space to get young techie entrepreneurs and give them a leg up and get them to start developing their businesses. We've also put another model called the ICANN Center into another area, also a poorer area, focusing more on adult education, but called the ICANN Center. I remember a few years ago sitting in the current Premier, Helen Zille's office, connecting through to Silicon Valley, connecting through to South Africans like Rudolf Botha and Winnie Lingham. And we started an organization called Silicon Cape. And government was specifically held out of Silicon Cape. It needed to be driven and energized by the private sector, not by government, but able to talk to government so that we could continue to develop this ecosystem, this enabling environment, preparing ourselves for something that we didn't even know was coming yet. But we knew it was the right thing to be doing. And slowly but surely we started to develop this ecosystem. And I can stand here now, 9 years into that economic development job and with my department, and say we've got some really great successes. And we've got an ecosystem that has developed some amazing entrepreneurs. I think South Africa specifically, many of our early entrepreneurs we lost. They developed product and they ended up going to other parts of the world, and I think we still have some serious pressure on our systems around our regulatory and tax environments on attracting more than losing, and we've got work to do in that space still in South Africa. But of late, we've started to see entrepreneurs coming up with really amazing solutions and then remaining here in this region. And that, for me, is very exciting. And we're seeing it in health tech, we're seeing it in fintech. I mean, a guy that I really, really enjoy watching is a young guy called Katlego Mapai and a couple of his mates, and they've developed a system called Yoko. I mean, you find it in many places, but it's a mobile phone device, reading credit cards, offering credit card banking facilities to the small and medium enterprises that the big banks aren't interested in. And it's interesting watching a small entrepreneur like that that's now disrupting our banking system. And actually, I believe is going to be making a big impact up into Africa. And you see what's happening in Zimbabwe around banking and how the big banks and the structured systems have actually almost disappeared in toto. And e-banking and banking on your mobile phones, and that system is entrenched, and it is the main system that happens. We leapfrog in Africa many, many things. And looking at entrepreneurs like that, looking at the work that's been happening over the last while, not necessarily in the space that you guys are thinking in and playing in, but the system that developed before or the enabling environment, which was a lot of back office processing, and we attracted lots of investment into that area. And of course, what you're busy with is how the back office processing industry has been developing to offer services around the world, and we're seeing what's happening in that environment, and it's really exciting. And we are creating more and more jobs in our ecosystem in that arena, and they are becoming smarter and offering smarter services from this region. And that, for me, is also very, very exciting. Looking at the investments that are coming into this region at the moment, I think the biggest data investment coming into this region is Amazon, but they've been here for quite a long time. They've been developing software in this region for a long time, and now you're seeing much bigger development, investment coming in. And so I asked myself the question in the beginning, have we created the right ecosystem? Are we going to be playing a role into the future, yes or no? And those kind of investments tell me the answer is yes, because the world is looking at us in a way that is exciting for me. I see the health tech space and lots of stuff happening in health tech, and that's really exciting, from our big companies like our insurance companies that are using behavioral economics to really develop best practice, and how they are using data and machine learning connected to universities in America and really starting to push the boundaries. And that's exciting for me because these are local companies that are developing product here in this ecosystem. So it says that as a government, I think we are getting some of the things right. You heard that I was the Minister of Agriculture for a couple of years, and that's one sector in this region that I think almost adopts technology quicker than most. And in a way, it almost goes against how you would conceptualize agriculture. You wouldn't think it would be that nimble. But for years, we've operated with smart pens and technology out in rural areas, feeding information back into the system, doing irrigation while our farmers sit on the beach somewhere and busy irrigating or doing whatever they need to through technology on their farms. And now with drones, we're moving from satellites in managing our water in agriculture now to drone technology in managing how our biomass is distributed or getting the right quantity of irrigation and moisture in to get the best results in our agricultural sector. So these are things that are happening at the moment. They're already exciting. And when we measure this region, we've just completed through our trade and industry body, Wesgro, an independent study. And this independent study was measuring the tech ecosystems of Nairobi, of Lagos, of Johannesburg, and of Cape Town. Because those are 4 cities in Africa that really are sort of pushing those boundaries. And I'm really proud to say that I think that kind of work that we've been doing has been saying to me that it was the right thing in creating the right platform. Because when we measured Nairobi and Lagos, Cape Town came up as a bigger tech ecosystem than both of those put together. Already 50,000 jobs in this region in that space. And that is the Stellenbosch, Cape Town, or the Greater Cape Town region. And really, really doing well. And actually pushing the boundaries even further than what is happening in Johannesburg. And for me, that says we've been doing the right things, creating the right space. But are we, or what do we need to be doing about going further? And so tonight, I want to first say that I've got one really, really big concern. And that is when I engage with Amazon or I engage with Excel, an Indian company that's just invested here, and they go to University of the Western Cape and they go and have a look at how many data scientists are coming through the system, or we go and see how many ICT tech students are coming through at UCT or Stellenbosch. And these companies, individual companies, are telling me that they want 500 data scientists and there's 48 coming through the pipeline, or 177 in this certain pipeline, and they need another 500 here or 800 there. And I think in total, we're probably lucky if we've got 1,800 students at the moment amongst the 3 universities just here in Cape Town doing or studying for this future. It worries me tremendously that we are not producing sufficient skills. And of course, I'm happy to say that there's a couple of people from Stellenbosch here at the moment. And are there people from UCT here? Yes, and UWC, I need this message to go back. Every single space, we need it to go back. We have got to start steering choices. I don't know how many people are doing sports science at the moment at Stellenbosch University, but I know last time I checked there were far too many. Far too many. And maybe you make too much money out of that course, and we've got to rethink about the economics of the university. But quite frankly, we need to start looking at how many students we are putting into this space. So we're developing an ecosystem, but this ecosystem can only work if we've got the correct skills base being developed. We've got a problem in South Africa. We've got one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world. This future technology economy, machine learning, AI economy, this is where young people need to be playing a role. And we must also look at ourselves as government, because we've got a massive role to play in making sure that we're producing the right skills from a school-based system getting up in. And we've got a lot of work to do. And that kind of brings me to my current role and what I'm doing right now. I spoke about fintech, and there's great stuff happening in fintech. There's great stuff happening where the private sector and the economy and what you guys do are meeting, those touch points. For me, and you heard that I put my hand up in a political race to say I would like to become the Premier of the province in the next term. I can tell you right now, in our government, we don't have data scientists in our government. It is a massive problem. We've got to change some of the major structure of our government to position ourselves for the future. I need to be discussing with people like yourselves, and we've just been talking about how we create an interactive platform so that we, people like you, and government can have a meaningful discussion on what we should be changing from our side to enable you, but also what we should be putting in place in our side to create that new ecosystem. Because I still, as I said in the beginning, I am worried that Africa is going to be left behind, or that we in South Africa are going to be left behind. But I also want to say to you, and I've sketched the kind of ecosystem that has been developing over time. We've got other problems here. We've got education problems, and how do we use your brain power and your thinking and how you approach the future to make sure that we fix our education system going into the future for our young people. But a big issue that affects us specifically here in Cape Town is crime. And how are we using technology to counter crime? Now, we're already doing that. I had a discussion. I've only had this job now for 2 months. My first discussion was with the city of Cape Town. They've got a 200 million rand system that they put in place called EPIC. It's their management system for the crime space. We've also got one, not in crime, because our job in provinces is an oversight over police. We have much more of a role to play in traffic policing and traffic management. And we've also got a 200 million rand system that we put in place around managing our traffic system, number plate recognition, connection to our camera systems, connected to our traffic police, etc., etc. We've already got mechanisms that can arrest you by appointment, because our traffic system, our camera system will tell us where you're most likely to be at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, and you've got a massive a lot of fines outstanding, and we will meet you there at 9 o'clock on Monday morning and get our fine money out of you. We've got those in place already. But guess what? The city system and the province system don't talk to each other. And of course, that is what we are, or what you are talking about going forward. Crime is a big issue, and that's why I have taken this opportunity to get to grips with the community safety portfolio in the months leading up to the election, because I believe that if we don't get crime right in our region, then that ecosystem is going to fail anyway, because that is a basic need that we have to put in place. And so I want to put challenges like that to you. We've got young minds that are coming up with amazing solutions, and we very proudly talk about entrepreneurs that are doing things here and around the world. But are we developing sufficient security tech? Are we using technology and systems at the moment? Everywhere I go into communities that are ravaged by gang violence and crime, they tell me, please, we want the government to put up more cameras. And that's fine. So we put up another camera. But in actual fact, why put up another camera in a facility where in a region where you've now got 8 cameras that are put in by the government, when in actual fact in our region there are 5 million cameras. 5 million cameras, because all of our phones have got cameras in them. And how are those cameras developing through systems that we can actually get the data to understand how criminals are moving around, and we can really start to reduce crime through technology. Those are the kind of challenges that we've got. I'm going to put them on the table today. Finding solutions for our education system, to change an education system that meets the demands of that future economy, to change the ecosystem that develops technology to help us with our crime, and our crime specifically in our poorer communities. That's where crime is hitting the hardest. And that's where we need to use technology to make a difference, so we create that enabling environment for our people for the future. And those are the kind of things that are challenging me, but those are the kind of challenges I would really like to put onto the table here as you have your discussions over the next week, I believe. It's a week still to go. that you can also have a look at opportunity. That South Africans can come up with technology that can be innovative in a way that can actually find solutions for us, not only here in the southern tip, but for Africa as a whole. In the crime space, government spends 82 billion rand a year. We've got a South African police service with 200,000 police officers, far too few. We've got a private sector industry in crime that's growing very fast. They're now sitting at a 42 billion rand business with over 500,000 staff members in the private security space. Now, of course, they like it that we can't solve our crime problems because the private sector is just stepping in and making money. If you guys can come up with solutions, we need to find those solutions in partnership with that industry so that we can build best practice, and that industry can then not see a diminishing role for themselves in this future economy, but they can play a role in crime-infested areas in other parts of the world. You know, when I took over this job, we believe that we've got this huge gang problem. When you really start doing research, the city in the world with the biggest gang problem is Los Angeles, and then, of course, it's followed by many cities in South America, and then, of course, it's followed by us here in the Cape. But if we can find solutions for us here, we can surely find solutions that we'll be able to market to those other cities that we've spoken about. I started off by saying, please drink wine, because we've got a drought. And, of course, there's another issue. We already use technology in Africa, in agriculture, to deal with how much water we use and when we use it, and is it efficient. But there are 120 cities around the world that nearly ran out of water or busy running out of water just as we were doing last year. What kind of artificial intelligence and what kind of machine learning technologies, innovation are being put in place at the moment to understand how we manage water on the planet? We've got so little fresh water on the planet. We've got growing populations in places that climate change is having huge effect on them. And are we finding, or are we spending enough time on finding those solutions? And why can't we find those solutions right here? We've had a crisis that's exercised everybody's minds. We need to move from having a bucket in our shower to using technology to understand exactly how we've got to use water more efficiently, more effectively, and where this latest, or where the next amount of water is going to be coming from and how we're going to manage it. But with those few words, I know I'm standing before you and dinner. You've got a week ahead of you. I hope I've sketched a little bit of the ecosystem that has been developing here in the southern tip of Africa. I hope specifically those of you first-time visitors to our region, that when you got here, this was definitely not what you were expecting, that you've been blown away by this region, that your minds and our local minds find many, many solutions in your networking that you're going to be having over the next week, and that I believe this conference is 35 years, 30? 30? 17 years on the go, and the first one in Africa. I hope this is definitely not the last one in Africa, that this was exciting enough to say that the next one's also going to be in Africa. With that, please help us find some amazing solutions, and please come back and visit us when that itch comes in, and keep drinking wine because we're saving water. Thank you very much.